confusion, grief, apathy, anger. This is what children feel. This is what children experience, being separated from their mother. This is why we say children do time right along with the mother. Studies show that 84% of mothers in federal institutions and 64% of mothers in state institutions have minor children who live with them prior to incarceration. That's a lot of children, isn't it? Very few fathers, listen to this, very few fathers are willing to assume custody, so many women lose their children to foster care. Some grandparents are able to take the children and raise them, but many lose their children. I didn't say they go away to foster care for a while. They lose their children to foster care. Various studies show that nearly 90% of fathers in prison report that their children live with their mothers, while only 28% of incarcerated mothers report that their children are being cared for by their fathers. 28%. Only 28% are cared for by their fathers while they're in prison. Who else cares for them? Either the grandparent or foster care. Most of the time it's foster care. But 90% of the fathers who are in prison don't even have to worry about that. This is something else that plays on a woman in prison's mind. Your dad doesn't even want to be bothered with you. Won't care for you. It's hard for female offenders to adjust to separation from their children. And if they've been addicted, they probably weren't good mothers in the first place, which is hard to face. Remember I told you, they think in their own minds, I'm not a good mother. If I was a good mother, I wouldn't be here and my child somewhere else. Since separation from their children weighs heavily on these mothers' minds, it opens up a special window for ministry to their children. Ministry to their children actually touches their heart. More so than ministry to fathers in prison. A woman doesn't lose that caring ability if she's really a mother. She doesn't lose that caring ability when she goes to prison. So this opens up a ministry to their children. You must therefore be prepared to do more than pray. You must be prepared to do more than preach or sing or give Bible studies. All of this is good. But you must be prepared to do more than this. Some of the things that we've talked about in the beginning. You must be prepared to engage your church about becoming involved in developing programs that will help strengthen family ties. Engage your church about developing programs that will help strengthening family ties. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. Assist in the care and protection of their children. You say, well, how can I do that? We'll tell you in just a minute. This will touch their hearts more than anything else you can do. This will touch their hearts even more than preaching a sermon to them about Jesus. This will touch their hearts even more than praying for them. The care and protection of their children. Consider asking the Community Services Department or Women's Ministry to start a LAM program. What's LAM? Love a Mother's Baby. The LAM program. That program was first developed in Chicago, but it has been broadened, if you will, by the Florida Conference. I thought I had a copy of that manual with me. I don't. I couldn't find it. I know I have one at home, but I couldn't find it. But If you want a copy of that manual, contact Frank Barton. He's the Prison Ministry Director of the Florida Conference. You can just call there and ask for his email or ask for him to call you back. I don't have his information with me, but call the Florida Conference and ask for Frank Barton. The Love a Mother's Baby program. Now, let me tell you a little bit about it. It is a program where a woman that has her child in prison, your church can have a baby shower for that baby, for that mother. Your church, not you, because you can't visit the family if you visit in the prison. You can't do it. But somebody else in your church can also, as a part of this LAM program, can actually go by and check on that baby. The caretaker will tell the mother that somebody from your church came by to check on your child. What does that do? Your whole church is then involved in ministering to these women because they're ministering to the baby. And we'll talk more about that when we get into tomorrow about ministering to the families. Get someone in your church to do the Angel Tree program. You've heard of the Angel Tree program. You can contact Prison Fellowship and actually get them to send you. I don't advocate that you say, send me some names of children that I can minister to. Start little. Start with 5 or 10. Yes?
We have an Angel Tree program with our ministry.
Okay.
So they can work through us and we can be able to relate it to them.
Okay. So contact Kenton. He can tell you how to do it and how to get names for an Angel Tree program. Every church should do an Angel Tree program for their community. Because believe it or not, there are children in every community who has a parent or parents in prison. Work with your Department of Corrections in establishing mother and child retreats to ease the imminent transition from incarceration to home. Mother-child retreats is something that I developed for the Salvation Army when I worked for them in Philadelphia. Now, as you know, you work for a company, anything you develop belongs to that company. But guess what? They didn't get me to sign anything saying it was their program, and I still have the program in my head. So therefore, I'm willing to help any conference develop a mother-child retreat. Because they didn't get me to sign anything, they didn't get me to sign it away, so it's still mine. And they still use it. They still use it. They also give the children and mothers the opportunity to renew and strengthen the mother-child relationship. Because you work with the Department of Corrections. They will bring 1 or 2 mothers to your conference, not your conference, to your retreat center or camp. And a correction officer will be with them. The mother and child or children will be in a cabin by themselves. The correction officer will be in a cabin by him or herself. Now they will check on them every now and then. But then, some churches have psychologists and psychiatrists or family therapists. Send those people for that weekend to interact with these people. Because they've got to rebuild that relationship with their children. Mother-child retreats. Some guidelines for ministering to females. In working with the female offender, you must be sincere, understanding, and willing to accept the offender where she is at the moment. Okay, the wrong one was printed out. We'll email that one to Pastor Eduardo, and he will email it out to you. Okay, these are the guidelines for working with female offenders. You must be willing and able to do what? To listen. You must be willing and able to listen. There is a handout. Is it? No. That's for another seminar. That's for the basic seminar. There's a handout. Write this down for me, Pastor. And is that it? Oh yeah, okay. There's a handout there. 7 ways to let an offender know you're listening to them. So you must be willing and able to listen. Listen for key ideas and underlying feelings versus facts and words. Now, how many of you have ever seen that old television program with Joe Friday in it? Dragnet. What does Joe Friday say? Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. That means he's not really listening. Now, I'll tell you a secret. You men might get mad at me again. Women are born listeners.
That's right.
I believe that. I don't have anything to back it up, but I believe that women are born listeners. Because they listen for ideas and they listen for feelings. Women speak more with feelings than men do. All we want is the Joe Friday thing. Just give me the facts, honey. Just give me the facts. But listen for ideas and feelings. Because women speak in ideas and feelings. So if you're working in a female prison, you've got to develop that whole concept of listening for ideas and underlying feelings, as well as facts and words. Be a friend, but not a best friend. Be a friend to a woman, but not a best friend, ladies. Male volunteers must be especially careful with this being a friend to them. Oh yeah, I have friends, 600 women in my institution. And you listen to them, they'll tell you, oh, I'm a friend to Chap. They call me Chap, Chaplain. I'm a friend to Chap. He's my friend. Now, they understand what they're saying. Because the first day I went there in 1998, I came all the way from Philadelphia and went to Virginia. The first day I went to that female prison, they spread the word. We got a male chaplain now. And they plotted what they could do. I called an assembly. Because the word got back to me. I called an assembly. I said, nope, that's not what's going to be. Now my lead chaplain, I'm not the lead chaplain, my lead chaplain is a female. But you've got to understand and be careful with being a friend to these women. Male volunteers, when introducing yourself or later addressing the female offender, put a handle on your name as well as theirs, such as brother or pastor. Not doctor. If you have a PhD, not doctor. Or even if you're a medical doctor, not doctor. You are a brother. The only person that's allowed to use their title in prisons is a pastor. And use only your first name. Be sure to always address the female offenders as well as the female volunteers as sister when talking to them too. It does two things. If you identify yourself as brother and them as sister and female volunteers as sister, they then get the idea that everybody's a part of a big family here. And you are a part of the family of God. But it also helps them not to become familiar with you. This is a scenario I want you to play it out. A male volunteer along with a female volunteer in a female facility have just, completed a Bible study session with a female offender. They and the offender have agreed to meet again next week. Both volunteers start towards the door. The offender stops the man and says, "Thanks for coming. Can I get just a little hug?" What should be his response?
No.
What? No? No. I'm not allowed. No, I'm not allowed. Interesting. Let me give you a suggested response. Sister, call her sister. Call the female volunteer sister. Sister and I are always happy to visit with you. As far as a hug, I remember in my training a rule about no physical contact except maybe a handshake. I believe it is best to follow that rule. Sister and I must hurry now, but we'll be back next week. Is that okay? Now, why am I asking, is that okay? Because she may not want us to come back now that she can't get a hug. So you ask for permission to come back next week. I want to give you 7 best practices. You should have them. They are? 7 best practices in dealing with female offenders. No, they're not. No, they're not. I look at the first one, it's not there. Eduardo, write that one down. 7 best practices. Fan the flame of prayer. Just 7 best practices. You don't have to write them down. I'll send them to you. I might can get them printed out tonight. I'll send them to you. I'll send them to you as soon as I get back to the hotel. Okay. Fan the flame of prayer. In other words, make prayer a part of your teaching. Make prayer a part of your teaching. Fan the flame of prayer. Emphasize the fact that prayer changes things. In most cases. Not in all cases. Prayer is not a panacea. But in most cases, prayer changes things. Encourage offenders to pray instead of complaining. So they're going to complain now. You learned this in my basic training, how they complain. Encourage them to pray instead of complaining. Pray that they will hear the message this time if this is not their first time being incarcerated. Pray that they will hear the message this time so that they don't have to come back again. Number 2, teach with gusto. In other words, give it all you got in teaching them. Do a book on the Bible or canned lessons or pick themes. Now, when you go through my basic training, I talk with you about how to give successful Bible studies. And I talk about canned lessons. What are canned lessons? Canned lessons are systematic lessons. Amazing facts. The 21
Voice of Prophecy.
Voice of Prophecy. Those are what I call canned lessons. Canned lessons are designed for one purpose and one purpose only, to make them Seventh-day Adventists. That's what they're designed to do. Now, I have a problem with going to the prison and my goal is to make them Adventists. That's not my goal. My goal in going to the prison is to make them disciples of Jesus. My goal is to get them more and more and more in love with Jesus. If they want to join the Adventist church, then I help them with how to do that. But if they don't, and they say, oh, when I get out, I'm going to join the Baptist church, go right ahead. I don't discourage it. Even if they say, well, I want to go back to my church. What is your church? The Catholic church. Go right ahead. I don't discourage it. I'd rather that they be Christians in another denomination than go back to their old livelihood. Amen. So don't worry about what you teach. But whatever you teach, teach with gusto. Even if canned lessons. Now, I teach directly from the Bible. Now, friends, if you attempt to teach from the Bible, you need to know your Bible. Amen. You can't teach directly from the Bible unless you know it. So I do, right now we're in the book of John, St. John. And last night, he should have finished up the 12th chapter. And next week, he's going to go back. It's my week, but he's going to go back for me because I've got to be somewhere else. And he'll do chapter 13. Now, it's interesting to me that John is the best book to teach them how to love Jesus more. John, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, and St. John. So we start with 1 John. Why do we start with 1 John? We start with 1 John because that's all about Jesus. And by the way, that is what Ellen White preached about when she visited Salem Penitentiary in the 1800s. She was the first Seventh-day Adventist to ever go inside of a prison. And it's on the back of one of our brochures. I don't know if I have it with me, I'll check. But, and I found out from reading her whole written thing about what she preached from, how she did it, and what do you think I did? I copied it. But I use it to teach from. So teach with gusto. Teach about the blessings of God. Some feel they can never be blessed because of all the bad things they've done. God couldn't bless me. I'm a terrible person. You just don't know me. So teach them about the blessings of God. Do not arrive unprepared. Do not arrive unprepared. Now I also teach you in my basic training about you need to go over whatever you're teaching the night before. Don't rely on what you learned 10 years ago. Go over it the night before. Shut the TV off. Go over what you're going to teach the next day. So do not arrive unprepared. Why? Because they study in preparation for your class. Some of them want to impress you. Some of them want to impress other offenders. And some of them want to try to take over your class. So this is why you do not go unprepared. Minister to women, not offenders. Although they are offenders, minister to women. Remember, you're ministering to women. Preach about strong women in the Bible. You can preach the other stuff too that we talked about in our session, on preaching in prison. But with women, preach about strong women in the Bible. You know some of them. It's a whole lot of them there. Don't preach about lesbians or anything associated with the LGBTQ community. I told you before, 9 times out of 10, you'll get kicked out of that institution. So make sure you don't preach about that. Women want to hear and feel God's love as you minister to them. In fact, you're the only Bible some will ever see. You're the only words of life some will ever read. Because they are looking at your life. They're listening to you. And so they want to hear your testimony. They want to feel that God loves them. Remember, women feel more than men do. Touch their hearts with kind words. Don't ever be negative. Don't ever come down on them. Always be kind. Bless them. Whenever you get the chance, again, build them up. Why? Because self-loathing is common. among women in prison. Encourage renewed self-esteem through God's word. Encourage renewed self-esteem. Remember, most of them already feel bad about themselves. So help them to feel good about themselves, self-esteem. Do not give up on them. Do not give up on them. Let them know that God forgives them. Teach them how to forgive others and how to forgive themselves. Women prisoners are harder on themselves than male prisoners. You've got some male prisoners that are hard on themselves, that think that, oh no, God can't forgive me. And they feel that way because they haven't forgiven themselves. But women are worse than that. They think all this mess that I've done, God can't forgive me. What they're saying to you is, I don't even forgive me. So teach them how to forgive themselves. Men, mind your manners. What do I mean by that? Watch your tone of voice. When you're speaking to a female offender, watch your tone of voice. Try to keep it as low as you can get it, so that they can still hear you. Watch your tone of voice. Why? Because many female offenders have flashbacks about their abusers. And if you come down on them with a heavy tone of voice, they think you are just like that abuser. So mind your manners. Watch your tone of voice. Watch your body language, especially what you do with your hands. You know, there are some men, they love touching and feeling. Don't do that to a female inmate, a female offender. Be careful what you do with your hands. I will go as far as to say keep them to yourself, unless it's a handshake. Guard your emotions, men. These women are lonely. That's why they develop relationships with other women. They're lonely. So guard your emotions. Remember, anything but a professional relationship can not only get you thrown out of prison or jail, it can get the entire team thrown out. Finally, whatever works, keep doing it. A convert is not measured by the rallying points on a piece of paper of how many raise their hands to commit. A convert is measured by the life that is lived after the individual is released back into society to start over again. That's what a convert is. Don't say, how many of you are willing to give your lives to Christ today? You might see all hands go up. That doesn't mean that they're converts. That doesn't mean that they really accept Christ. Other facts you need to know as we prepare to close. About 6% of women are pregnant when they go to prison. 6% of women are pregnant when they go to prison. Many women enter prison as single parents or give birth while there, hence the LAMB program. Newborns are separated from their mothers within a day or two of their birth, missing the crucial, irretrievable period of bonding. You take a newborn away from his mother a day or two after they are born, there's no bonding happening there. Male offenders receive twice the number of visits as the female offender. That's sad. Twice the number of visits as the female. Female volunteers are generally apprehensive about working with female offenders. And it's also true the other way around. Female offenders are apprehensive about working with female volunteers. So you've got to really be dedicated to women to work with women. I'm not saying it's impossible, because it is possible. But you just got to be, number one, sold out to Jesus, and number two, committed to work with these women. In that order, you got to do it. The element of trust among the female offender is 0. In most cases, this lack of trust is the result of living and being exposed to a lifestyle of crime. When a person is used to getting over, or getting by, or being ripped off by others, or ripping others off, or being betrayed by police informants, witnessing police officers taking their bribes, committing prostitution with lawyers, prosecutors, judges, and even pastors. You can see why they don't trust anybody. She no longer has control over her space. This is a summary. She is often incarcerated far from home. This is the fastest growing segment of the prison population. Female incarceration has increased by 138%. I think, now, I don't have any proof of this, but I think it's because of the feminist movement. Because they started talking about, treat us like men. So the judges said, okay, you want to be treated like men? Okay. So it has increased 138%. Women in prison need emotional security. They need to know that someone cares for them. Women in prison need personal care through regular visitation. Women prisoners who attend religious services regularly have lower recidivism rates. Lower recidivism rates. They don't return to prison. A study by Prison Fellowship said that 49% don't return to prison because they attended religious services. We talk about that in our basic training as well. Half of the women in prison said that they committed their crime under the influence of what? Drugs and or alcohol, both drugs. More than half used drugs in the month prior to their incarceration. 2/5 has used drugs daily. But understand this. The overwhelming number of women behind bars belong in treatment rather than in prison. Amen. In treatment rather than in prison. Be sure to read the following sections in the manual. Evangelism Behind Bars Manual. Institutional relationships. If you don't read anything else, read these sections. Do's and don'ts. The dress code. And active listening. If you only read those sections, I will still certify you as prison evangelist. If you only read those sections. Because that goes right along with what we're teaching today. Recommended movie to see. If you don't have this movie, get it. This is one of the best movies I've ever seen about ministering to female inmates or female offenders. Prison of Secrets. Now, if you've got squeamy ears, you don't need this movie because there's some 4-letter words in it. And there's some sex scenes in it. But I guarantee you, you will understand women better, women prisoners better, if you view this movie.